and friends have a happy and peaceful holy month of Ramadan started, and I wish you to have the peace in your families, happiness for your relatives and friends, not just during this month, but forever. Best wishes. I can only say that I can convey the blessings from my good friend, former Mufti of Ukrainian Muslims, and still Sheikh Said Ismagilov, and all my Muslim friends. I communicated recently because of Ramadan. I just congratulated them. And they conveyed the blessings and greetings to all the Muslim community of Indonesia, wishing peaceful Ramadan. As you could trace, my friend Sheikh Said now is wearing a military attire and saving lives, driving the paramilitary ambulance in the front line. And between the fighting, between the tasks, he sits somewhere and reads Quran, and it's very touching. And I just like watching him every day. However, I don't understand what he reads, but I listen from the first to the last sound. His reading of Quran, holy book of all Muslims. Thank you for attending. I understand that today is not just not a simple day. Jumat, Hari Jumat, and Jumatanim prayers, and unfortunately, today all Ukrainian people remember. It's a day of remembrance of one of the most brutal catastrophes in the modern history. We call it Bucha tragedy or Bucha massacre. This happened exactly 1 year ago when Russian aggressors retreated from Bucha, a small town not far from Ibukota, Ukraina, Kyiv. And when they retreated, and our soldiers and police and civilians entered the town, they've discovered that a lot of war crimes were committed during the occupation. It was a month of occupation, and after that, the absolutely unimaginable crimes were committed by Russian army. And of course, we cannot stay silent about that. And at present, it's tens of thousands of criminal cases are filed and handled to the International Tribunal and to International Court of Justice and Criminal Court about the crimes committed by Russians. It's all cannot be described without tears and without pain by any human being. The worst of all is that we call it Bucha massacre, but in fact, when Ukrainian army liberated other cities and villages, we discovered that everything like Bucha happened in all territory of Ukraine, which was under the occupation. Unfortunately, we have dozens, if not hundreds, of Buchas at present. And Bucha just became the symbol of Russian crimes, Russian war crimes, because it was the first town liberated, and so the first victims were discovered in Bucha. And I'm talking about the terrible crimes against humanity. It's tortures, it's rapes, it's murders in cold blood of Ukrainian civilians, among them women and children. Just one small fact. In Bucha, only in Bucha, in this small town, provided that a lot of people left before the occupation, about 25 girls and women aged from 14 to 24 were systematically raped during the occupation. Systematically, I mean they were kept in a cellar somewhere under the building, and then every day raped by Russian soldiers. And now, out of these people, some died, and 9 of them are pregnant. And this is outrageous crime that cannot be forgiven, cannot be forgotten. And our understanding is that the whole world must know. We must not hide and say, well, we would not discuss this because it's so outrageous. But we have to talk about this. We have to let the world know and understand who is attacking Ukraine at the moment. And of course, I'm addressing my speech also to the people who are being contaminated by propaganda. And that's why writing like things like "We love Russia" and "Ura" and "Putin is our hero." Think about that. How many civilians, peaceful civilians, were killed? How many women and girls were raped? How many civilians, men, women, and children were tortured? Just this. And of course, these crimes committed by Russians in Ukrainian territory, starting from Bucha and to Irpin, to Borodyanka, Izium, and all the other cities and towns we still don't know, on all the other villages. This is being filed and sent to the consideration of International Criminal Court and other tribunals that are created or will be created. Because I can say this word now, all they committed have the very direct signs of genocide against Ukrainian people. This is serious accusation towards Russia, but this, unfortunately, we have to say it aloud. It is a genocide against the Ukrainian nation. Because tortures, murders, mass murders, and rapes are the weapons of terror. You can call it the weapons of war, but these are the instruments and tools of terror. Russian Empire wanted to enslave Ukraine and still wants to enslave Ukraine. And that's one of the elements of that is terrorizing the civilians, make them afraid, make them shiver with thrill and surrender to the occupants, which is not happening. Thanks God we are the strong nation and this is not happening. And God with us and God protects us. Duhan Pinchipta will protect Ukrainian nation who fights for the independence and for freedom. A part of this, I would like also to inform you, maybe, well, you've heard about that, but still I have to inform you about that. Good news is that International Criminal Court declared Putin, the so-called president of Russia, of so-called Russian Federation, the international criminal, international war criminal. One of the reasons for that is that under the direct orders of Vladimir Putin, around 20,000 of Ukrainian children were deported to Russia from Ukraine forcefully, without any permission, without any agreement with parents or someone else. 20,000, well, to be precise, it's like 19,514 cases of forceful deportation of Ukrainian children, including under the pretext of psychiatric and medical rehabilitation, have been recorded already by today. And this is another violation of international humanitarian law, and it's another violation of all possible and impossible international principles and laws and it is the crime of war, for which already is like not unprecedented, but in the history of the humankind, and in the history of the International Criminal Court, especially, I think it's the third case where the president or head of state declared war criminal and like declared wanted for war crimes. It is very obvious that this is the beginning of the end of the Moscow fascist regime, and no doubts about that. At present, as I mentioned, 19,000 cases, 20,000 cases, including over 4,000 of children with a special status, like orphans or disabled or something. And they still remained in the territories of occupied by Russia or in Russian Federation. These kids will be returned eventually, but at present, it's very disturbing, and I hope that world community, global community, and the media people will say aloud about that, because the crimes committed against the people is outrageous. But crimes committed against children, the most vulnerable category of the population, cannot be excused, cannot be tolerated, and cannot be justified. Any crimes against kids cannot be tolerated or justified. And of course, I rely on you, my dear friends, on media, to say loud about this, so people will know what happens, what crimes are being committed by the Russian friends in Ukraine. Another crime that goes absolutely diametrically against all international laws and principles is the decision of Russian Federation, to the intention or the decision to place nuclear warheads or weapons in the territory of the other state, the state of Belarus, which will make it very close to the Europe, and of course, like it will be very dangerous for all the countries surrounding Russia and Belarus, like Baltic states, like Poland, of course, Ukraine, and other countries. Indonesia is the country well known for standing strong against the nuclear proliferation, and standing firm for keeping the at least the Southeast Asia and the world nuclear free. Well, the region is nuclear free, and I hope it will remain that. So I think for Indonesia, it's a very sensitive issue when nuclear proliferation limitations or rules are being broken, are being violated brutally by someone, and this someone is Russian Federation. So at present, the declaration was made that tactical nuclear weapons will be placed on the territory of Belarus, and it will be a significant threat to Ukraine, and also to the rest of Europe. Russia undermines the treaty on the non-proliferation of nuclear weapons. It's clear, and we urge Belarus people, Belarus society, to prevent Russia from moving on that way. But like Putin's decision and orders keep Belarus a hostage of the Kremlin, Moscow fascist regime aggressive policies, exposing the country to possible catastrophes, because the consequences of this decision by Kremlin could be disastrous for Kremlin himself, for Russia, and for Belarus, on the first place. So this, I think that world community also is preparing to react to this new threat. Ukraine already requested an emergency UN Security Council meeting dedicated to this question. The international community must strongly reject Putin's new threat, because it's unacceptable in civilized world. By the way, talking about the UN Security Council, it's important to say, and I will remind you again and again on that according to the United Nations Statute, according to the Charter and other documents, Russian Federation has no right to be the member of the Security Council. And to be precise, it never even applied to be a member of the United Nations, because it is stated clearly that the Union of Soviet Socialist Republic, or the USSR, or the Soviet Union, was one of the founders, together with other countries, and together, by the way, with Ukraine, which is in the UN Charter. But there is no any meaning of Russian Federation, any mentioning of Russian Federation. So it's a bad joke, but Russia still has the place in the United Nations Security Council. Over 30 years, like possessing it illegally. And this is really the violation of international laws, as any other violation committed by Russia. I think that now Russian UN Security Council presidency, starting from the April the 1st, really sounds like a bad joke. And Russia has usurped its seat, and it's started the war of enslaving Ukraine, and its leader is a criminal wanted by the International Court of Justice for kidnapping children, and Russia is still the permanent member of the UN Security Council. It's a bad joke. But I hope that world community, global community, will come to this issue soon, very soon, and the membership, the seat of Russia in the UN Security Council will be seriously considered and reviewed, because it's, again, I repeat, Russia has no right to be there. Russia is not the Soviet Union. Okay, so yeah, join us in spreading the truth about the Russian Federation, about the terrorist state of Russia, or I would call it failed state of Russia. A little bit of good news for you today is that even during the aggression still on its way, Ukraine remains one of the world's top agricultural exporters. So Ukraine still exports grains and other food to ensure the food security, to ensure the supplies of food to the countries that really need it, including the poor countries in Africa on the brink of starvation. So Ukraine remains one of the top five exporters of food, being the guarantor of the world food security. Due to our principal position, the Black Sea Grain Initiative was extended after its expiry on March 18th. It was extended for 120 days, and it goes on. We will not stop doing this, and even under the risk under the threat from Russian Federation. Ukraine continues to export agricultural products through 3 deep sea ports, mainly in Odessa, and we demand the Russian Federation, of course, and we ask for support from the world community to extend the ability of Ukraine to export grains, expand the Ukrainian ports for Mykolaiv region, renew the deliveries from Mykolaiv seaport. Since the 1st of August 2022, 25.9 million tons of Ukrainian food were exported by the sea, through the seaports. And of course, this volume could be significantly higher if Russia does not create the obstacles and does not hamper the deliveries, taking the examination, inspection of vessels as an excuse. 6 inspections per day, and now we have around 94 vessels still waiting in the ports in line. So this is good news for the world and bad news again for Russia. And maybe finally, I would mention that despite the efforts of Russia and some other minor forces in the world, peace formula created and declared and like proclaimed by President of Ukraine is still on the way, is being discussed widely in the world within the world community, and by today it remains the best instrument and the best mechanism of returning of resuming peace in Ukraine, and of preventing the wars and conflicts from happening in the future. This formula will cover all the issues of the common concern of the global community, including the food security, nuclear safety, energy security, etc., 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 prisoners of war and ceasefires and everything like that. So implementation of the 10-point peace formula presented by President Zelensky at G20 summit in Bali will bring comprehensive, just, and lasting peace to Ukraine and security to the world. Formula's main goal is to deprive Russia of its tools to commit the crime of aggression against Ukraine, to restore Ukraine's territorial integrity, and to guarantee security and justice for the entire international community. My dear friends, I will not repeat what I just mentioned, but just one thing. I'm grateful to you again for what you do, for how you cover the news, for how you deliver the truth to the Indonesian nation, to the Indonesian people in all the regions, everywhere, for all age, for all groups, Muslims and Christians and everyone else, and we like men and women, young people and elders. Thank you very much for that. We must not forget the good things that are made globally to the humankind. We must not forget the contributions to the peace, contributions to security, to the global security and peace. Also, we must not forget the crime and atrocities committed by the criminals. We must not forget this. We must not forgive. And again, today is the day that we remember our brothers and sisters, our children and parents that were killed by Russian aggressor in many villages, towns, and cities of Ukraine. The war is going on, unfortunately still not over. Ukraine, today is the 400 days of heroic resistance of Ukrainian nation against the aggressor. I now rereading the history books on Indonesian history, and now I came to this period of anti-colonial war of 40s and till the 1950s. I'm reading this now, and I'm telling you that the history is repeating. The history is repeating. However, I guess in the last 100 or 200 years at least, globally, there was no such a brutal and heinous aggressor as Russian Federation, because this one is fighting against peaceful people, against civilians, against children and women. And this is something that not many not many examples in the history of the humankind I can give you like that. And don't forget, we are living in the 21st century. So again, I thank you very much for your presence. I wish you peaceful Ramadan. I wish you a nice iftar today. And I wish prosperity and stability for your country. Thank you so much for your attendance. We still have like 9 minutes. If you have any questions, you can ask. Maybe there is something that you want to ask. Maybe before that, well, it's maybe there was a question regarding the Ukrainians in Bali. I still did not receive any statistics from the governor's office regarding Ukrainian, but I received the figures from the publications, various publications, which proves that Ukrainians, more or less in the majority, they behave well. They stay respectful for rules and laws of Republic of Indonesia and for the local rules. And it's like just absolute minority of Ukrainians that stays in Indonesia that breaks rules or violates some regulations. So I'm confident about that, and I'm grateful for my Ukrainian compatriots who temporarily stay in Bali or in other places in Indonesia for being good, obedient, law obedient, and sincere people who respect the laws of this country. Maybe you have another questions? No? How many civilians were killed during the Bucha massacre? We have the filed, the documented death in Bucha of hundreds. It's around over 1,000 of people, of civilians murdered, not just killed because of the bombardment, not killed when artillery fires or tank fires. No, they were murdered by the guns from behind the back, with the eyes closed, with the hands tied behind the backs. So this was the murder, not like war, something casualties. No, they were murdered in cold blood. And Bucha, just understand it, Bucha is a very small town, very small town. And we have dozens of Buchas, dozens around liberated territories that were under occupation. Every village, every town we liberate, we discover what? Mass graves. We discover the chambers of torture chambers, even specially designed for children. Can you imagine this? Please, by the way, please, my dear friends, for those of you who did not, please visit my Instagram and Twitter. Instagram is very simple. It's or my embassy's Instagram, Ukraine in Indonesia. It's Instagram, and there are a lot of materials in Indonesian, in Bahasa Indonesia, and including the Bucha massacre, including the mass graves discovered in other places. So now we're talking about the tens of thousands of people killed, tens of thousands of people killed. So in cold blood. So this is the answer for Bucha. I would, there are too many, not too many. You just surf the media, say Bucha massacre, and you'll see plenty of photos, videos, like reminiscences, like interviews, etc. I know about this also, unfortunately, not just from the media, because my close friend a very good friend since 90s. And he is thanks God he's alive. And they evacuated from Bucha in 2 weeks after the occupation. So they were like running and they were like hiding, and it was like really, really, really bad. I don't know how they managed to survive, but they survived. And they told me, he was just talking hours to me, how scary and how terrible it was. And his house is nearly like it's not destroyed from outside, but destroyed from inside. For Russian so-called soldiers lived there for a month, and they just literally destroyed the house from inside. Just breaking, burning, destroying everything around them. That's a philosophy of Russian army: destroy, kill, rape. I gave some like private interview about that, and Russians are unfortunately, again, it's historical truth. I'm like a historian. I can tell you can check this also in the internet, Wikipedia, everywhere. They are like genetically, not genetically, but historically, the worst rapists in the history. And it is due to the Russians' family traditions, unfortunately. They have a very specific family traditions when, rape was not treated as a crime in Russian families during the centuries. That's why Russians has always been rapists. Remember the Second World War, the millions of German women were raped and girls were raped in Berlin when a Russian army came into Berlin, etc., etc. So unfortunately, this is the sad truth. And good news is that Russian Federation, Russian Empire will be destroyed, will be defeated. It's inevitable process. Empires like that will not survive because it's illegal and it's not logical for this brutal fascist state to exist any longer in this world. So I wish you peace, I wish you security, I wish you prosperity, and I thank you again, my dear friends, for doing what you do. You are doing great things, not for Ukraine. You are doing great things for the humankind, and you are doing great things for the peace and stability in this world. So thank you so much again, and please see in the chat of the conference the links for Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Thank you so much. Terima kasih banyak, saudara-saudari. Sampai jumpa.